Hey, it's great to be with you today. My name's Chad. I'm the Executive Director of the Trellis Group. And here at the Trellis Group, we focus on making disciples and then developing those disciples to be great leaders who make other great leaders. You know, over the past year, a number of you have asked me, what exactly are you doing? And I want to show you today. I've got my screen pulled up here with my iPad so you can see me write some things down. And just to give you a bit of our philosophy before I get started, understand this, that when people come to us and they ask for help with vision development or understanding how God's uniquely created them, or helping a business understand their core values, we always begin with discipleship. And here's why. We believe that discipleship is the core. And if we get this core or foundation correct, then we can build upon that foundation. And so we really begin with discipleship, and we take the verse out of Luke 9:23 as our main platform, as our main outline, in helping us understand what it means to follow Christ. Because to be a disciple is to follow Jesus Christ. And if we really follow Jesus Christ and we get what that means, and God helps transform us, then we will, by nature, go begin making disciples. It'll be about others. It'll be about honoring God. And we really begin to fulfill the great command, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, but also to love your neighbor as yourself. So we really focus on this concept. First, be a disciple, then you will make disciples. Making disciples is a product of being a disciple. A lot of times we get that backwards in the church. We talk about going and making disciples when a lot of people in our community don't understand what it means first to be one. So that's why we focus there. Once we get that idea of an understanding of what it means to be a disciple, then we take those same principles and we apply them to every area of our life. The good news is the way God has shown us this through His Word and through the life of Jesus Christ, is it's based on principles, and those principles can be applied no matter if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a business leader, if you're a pastor, if you're a student, athlete. These principles apply to all of us because they apply to humanity. And so when we use that understanding and we rely on that understanding, we then move forward into answering some of these other questions, like who has God created you to be? Or who has God created, why has God put you in the business you're in? What gifts, what motivations do you have, and how does God want to use them? And so here's what we say when we talk to people. What if we told you that within a few weeks you could have a much deeper walk with God, understand how He's uniquely created you and motivated you and gifted you, and then come out with a plan to begin go living that out? Most people in their right mind would say, hey, that sounds good. I want to know more about that. And so this is what the video is all about right here, to kind of let you know what we're doing and how you can be involved. And so what we do is we take this verse out of Luke 9:23. All right, in Luke 9:23, what's going on is Jesus has just told the disciples that He's going to be killed, rejected, and raised on the third day. So Israel's actually going to reject Him. All right. Now, right before that, Peter's already answered a question when Jesus asked, who do you say that I am? And Peter says He's the Christ, He's the Messiah. He's the one that's been foretold for hundreds of years. And then immediately after he says that, then he says, I'm going to be rejected by Israel, by the chief priest, be killed and raised on the third day. And if that wasn't shocking enough, he then says, and hey, if anyone desires to come after me, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. And that sounds daunting, it sounds harsh, it sounds hard, but I'm going to show you real quickly that it's not what you think probably. And so we're going to see that and how that plays out in Jesus' life, and then how that's going to play out in our lives. And so Luke 9:23 says, if anyone desires to come after me, we begin with what we call the miracle of desire. And we say that's a miracle because of what Romans says. Paul's quoting in Romans chapter 3, 2 Psalms and Ecclesiastes 7:20, when he says there's no one who seeks God. We've all gone our own way. And the reason humanity has gone its own way is because each of us, since Adam and Eve, have been born into sin. We're under the curse of the law. And so that's who we are by nature in our flesh, right? But God does this amazing work in that he sends his son into this fallen creation, and he lives this perfect sinless life, being fully man and fully God. And so he bridges the gap between God and man, and that he lays down his life as a perfect sacrifice for us. All right? And so now when we receive that gift of salvation, what we're receiving is the gift of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice. And it's such a beautiful picture because it shows us that Jesus took our place on the cross. And so God's calling us to himself. He's calling us and he's saying, listen, now I'm interrupting your life. I'm drawing you to myself. I want you to know me. I want you to receive this salvation. And so God's really doing this amazing work. And that's why we call it a miracle. Because for any of us to really desire to know God, it's because God has already done a miracle in our own life. So that's the miracle of desire. But then he goes on and he says this. He says, deny yourself. Then he goes on and says, take up. Now look at this. Your cross. All right? And then and only then does the follow me come. Now here's what's beautiful. God just doesn't tell us what to do. He shows us what it looks like in Jesus Christ. And here's where he shows us. He shows us a number of places of self-denial, but one in particular is a garden. It's the Garden of Gethsemane. Now think about it. In the first garden, Adam and Eve said, not your will, God, but my will be done. They walked into disobedience. And when they walked into that disobedience, what they didn't realize is that they were disconnecting and rejecting this God who loved them and created them. And it's such a tragic story. But foretold from that point on was one who would come. And when he went to his garden, listen, Jesus didn't say, not your will, Father. He said, Lord, if there's any way, let this cup pass from me, in this one beautiful, powerful word, nevertheless. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. It's amazing. So in the second garden, the Son of Man said, not my will, but yours, Father, be done. And that opened the door for him to walk in obedience to the cross. And there on the cross, he paid the perfect sacrifice for our sins. He dealt with the problem. And so if the wages of sin is death, all right, if sin brings death, and Jesus Christ has perfectly and fully paid the penalty for our sin in dying on the cross, so death has been dealt with. Death has been overcome. What's the only thing that can follow? Friend, the only thing that can follow is life. And that's what the resurrection is all about. So you say, Chad, what does it mean for me to follow Christ? It actually means for you to walk in the power of the resurrection. To walk in the power of the resurrection. And so we walk through this outline and we go deeper into Scripture for each one of these sections. And we dive in and we do a lot of things. We go through some devotional stuff together. The 40 Days of Surrender book. We go through Dietrich Bonhoeffer, some Cost of Discipleship. And then once a week, we meet and we decompress all the things God's shown us during the week. And then we continue to work our way through that outline. So here's why, when you say, why are you doing this? Well, years ago, as I began to disciple and use this process of discipleship, now almost 12 years ago, it began with college students, but it quickly grew up. And it grew up into this. I began working with pastors all across the country. It started with a couple of friends of mine who were pastors, but then it quickly grew over time. Here's what I found out. I found this over these past years, is that the vast majority of our pastors have never had anybody walk with them spiritually in discipleship. They might have went to school, they felt the call, they went and got equipped, or they just went out there and they began doing, and a vast majority have never been discipled. And by the time we see them, oftentimes they're tired, they're worn out, they're in bad spiritual health. And so God just brings us together at that time to encourage them, and I really just pour into those men. And so that happens. I work with church planners often who are beginning their journey, and how awesome it is to give them this process of discipleship that they can take and they can begin discipling as they plant their church. But one area has been growing more and more over the past couple of years, and that's working with business leaders. I've always enjoyed business. I've loved business. I was an entrepreneur in college, started my own business to help pay for my own school. And I've always loved that side of life. And God's just really opened the door to work with business leaders and people who are in the business world who desire to know what it means to be a disciple, but also make disciples in the workplace. And that is an exciting part of ministry. And so that's a synopsis of what we do, just briefly. And if you would like more information, please feel free to give me a call or reach out. My information's at the bottom in the YouTube video. Give us a like. But also, if you say, man, I would love to support that ministry, because remember, we work oftentimes with church planners, bivocational pastors, and a lot of times these people are just trying to work hard to make ends meet for their family. And so that's why we started a nonprofit, so we could offer this to them at a very, very low cost. And so if you would like to be a part of our giving team, our website's down below. Please join our monthly giving team. We would be so greatly honored. We'd love to send you some more information about what we do. And maybe you're out there and you say, man, I need to go through something like this. I need this in my life. Hey, don't hesitate. Reach out to us and let's get you plugged in and let's see what God has for you. So thanks for listening. God bless you. I hope to talk to you soon. And if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. Continue to pray for the ministry, that God would just use us and open doors to make a difference in this world